I'm Dr. Tom, and welcome back to A Sacred Journey. I'm very glad that you chose to be here with me today, and today I'm going to go over, it's going to be part of a series actually of a book that had a profound effect on me, not only during my own developmental journey, but also in reading it. It really coincided, I saw, with a lot of the work that I do in analytical and developmental psychology. Is Siddhartha, written by Hermann Hesse. Now, Hermann Hesse was a Nobel laureate author that was around in the early 1900s. In writing this book, Siddhartha, he was well accustomed to the psychoanalytic concepts of the day that were quite prevalent in Europe, where he was from at the time. In fact, when Hermann Hesse was writing this novel, he got into a profound period of writer's block towards the mid part of the novel, and then sought psychoanalysis from a contemporary of Carl Jung, who also studied under Carl Jung at that time. And even on one occasion, Hermann Hesse was said to have met with Jung during the period of writer's block that had him unable to complete the second half from the book, which really explores the protagonist's plight to become individuated or to realize his self-potential. Exploring this novel, I want to examine the archetypes present, especially as they provide us inroads into our own personal development, whether it be our personal development from a childhood perspective and working with and handling possible dreams our parents may have had for us, or even the psychological development that we undertake as we enter adult life and begin to dream life forward for ourselves. One thing that I notice is there's a continuum in these pools of development, especially as it relates from intrapersonal, or that which happens within, and interpersonal, things that happen between individuals. Maybe it's family members or society in general, that really play a role in and have an effect on our individuated development, or that individual we are striving to become. The excerpts that I'll be reading from is the book Siddhartha, written by Hermann Hesse. It's from the Penguin Classics edition. And this was a tale about Siddhartha, the man who would eventually become the Buddha, and his journey to find ultimately that person that was himself. Further ado, let's begin the first part. Part 1. The Son of the Brahman. In the shade of the house, in the sunshine of the riverbank near the boats, in the shade of the saltwood forest, in the shade of the fig tree is where Siddhartha grew up, the handsome son of the Brahman, the young falcon, together with his friend Govinda, son of a Brahman. The sun tanned his light shoulders by the banks of the river when bathing, performing the sacred ablutions, the sacred offerings. In the mango grove, shade poured into his black eyes, when playing as a boy, when his mother sang, when the sacred offerings were made, when his father, the scholar, taught him, when the wise men talked. For a long time, Siddhartha had been partaking in the discussions of the wise men, practicing debate with Govinda, practicing with Govinda the art of reflection, the service of meditation. He already knew how to speak the Om silently, the word of words, to speak it silently into himself while inhaling, to speak it silently out of himself while exhaling, with all the concentration of his soul, the forehead surrounded by the glow of the clear-thinking spirit. He already knew how to feel Atman in the depths of his being. indestructible, one with the universe. Joy leapt in his father's heart for his son, who was quick to learn, thirsty for knowledge. He saw him growing up to become a great wise man and priest, a prince among the Brahmins. Bliss leaped in his mother's breast when she saw him walking, when she saw him sit down and get up. Siddhartha, the strong, handsome, he who was walking on slender legs, greeting her with perfect respect. Beauty present in the symbols of the story. They speak to us from many facets. Psychologically, they hold the capacity to really prime the psyche for its developmental tasks at hand. Anytime we read a fairy story to a child, many times they ask for a repetition of it. In fact, my youngest son will oftentimes watch the same movie over and over and over again as a means to understand the different parts that are present. He's processing at that time multiple levels of psychological data, whether it be to learn a song that's playing within the musical that's being watched, or to learn the various lines that are present. While he may be looking at it from that perspective as it relates to the field of study that he loves, which is drama, there also is avenues of psychological development that occurs when we process things over and over again from a different perspective. I remember doing something similar in my early childhood development where I'd have my parents read to me fairy tales over and over again because something that I was working on was processing within that information. The storyline, the themes present that not only stood out to me but seemed like they may be a fundamental lesson to learn. And that's the power with myth, the power with fairy tales, especially as it relates to our overall development. They talk to us in a symbolic fashion. And I reacquainted myself with this concept from an experiential perspective, again, when I was in college, where I really began to enjoy watching time and time again the Star Wars trilogy. There was something there that was speaking to me, something that was possibly spiritual in nature that I wasn't able quite to grasp until I went further into the field of study of psychology and was introduced to the mythologist Joseph Campbell, who, of course, George Lucas invited to his home before his death in 1988 to record really what would become the culmination of his life works. Power of Myth. Bill Moyer interviews Joseph Campbell on a series of the symbols that he sees as relating to the hero's journey. And I bring up Campbell's work, especially as it relates to the story Siddhartha, and all stories in general, because when we look at the theme behind a hero's journey, we really see the inroads to where we could begin to go within and honor those hidden parts of the psyche that may be in recess at this time and pull them out to really engage that inner heroism, to realize our potential as we move forward. Beginning of our story, we see just that as they're introducing Siddhartha in a infantile state. The story begins really talking about the And our story begins just in that state where we're looking at Siddhartha being introduced to the readers as being part of a larger community, part of a priesthood in Hindu culture that are known as the Brahmins. In fact, within the Indian culture, it's the highest caste as it relates to individuals working with the spiritual realm. And we're introduced to the story first with a shadow. It states in the shade of the house in the sunshine of the riverbank near the boat. A lot of symbolism is present here. We notice that the house casts shade, and we're all born into a house. Maybe it's the house of our family, it's our surname, it's our lineage that we're born within. And this oftentimes casts a shadow that can maybe impede our journey in finding the sunshine, in finding the light of the journey that the riverbank takes us upon. And so in the initial sentence, we're really introduced to a conflict that's present because the house is shadowing the journey. It's covering the sunshine of the riverbank near the boats. And the salwood forest in the shade of the fig tree, that is where we know that Siddhartha grew up, at least in Hermann Hesse's vision of this magnificent journey the man that would become the Buddha undertook. We're introduced to the fig tree. We're introduced to the concept that something by being near this fig tree is going to be of importance because it comes in as a separate entity from the salwood forest. It comes from as a separate entity from the shadow of the house, the shade of the house, and the sunshine that Siddhartha is going to undertake. Siddhartha grew up the handsome son of a Brahmin, the young falcon, together with his friend Govinda, the son of a Brahmin. How beautiful is that? To think that there's an inner falcon within us. There's this inner need to take flight. It may not have taken flight yet. It may not have gone astray yet to find its path along the sunshine of the riverbank. It may still be shaded by the house, but we know that this journey really encompasses friendships and relationships and people undertaking similar life paths, maybe divergent life paths. And as we approach this journey, especially in childhood, we begin to realize that maybe we're not all that alone. I remember in childhood making friends within the school. I remember making friends with the people in my neighborhood, and we would play childhood games. And as we did so, we began to realize that we weren't quite alone in this journey, that there was some aspects that we could learn to get along with, maybe cooperate. And from that perspective, we begin to see that this is going to be a personal journey for Siddhartha, but there is going to be guidance and help amongst not only peers along the way, but also maybe this guiding totem of a falcon that's present in his life as he learns to soar. The sun tanned his light shoulders by the bank of the river when bathing, performing the sacred ablutions, the sacred offerings. Take a moment just to reflect upon this, and when we finish with this, we'll end for the day, and we'll look at the archetypal themes that are present in the rest of the passages, especially the aspects of how our family lineage, how our mothers and fathers may house secret compartmentalized dreams for us as it relates in the next segment of this exploration of the themes that underlie Siddhartha. What's important here is that we know that the sun is always with us. It guides us. There's a light that's present. And this light, it traverses the riverbank. There's shade present, especially as it relates within the forest, where it relates that there's a fig tree that's separate, and especially the shade of the house. And sun is tanning Siddhartha's light shoulders on the banks. There's a presence of getting old. There's a presence of aging in this process that when the sun touches you, it does age you. With each day that we have, we're one day older. And we realize that in the river, there's a task that's present, especially as it relates to the bathing and the performing of the sacred ablutions, which is to get rid of. In Christianity, we may call this an aspect of baptism or a forgiveness of sins. And we offer sacred offerings each day because each day that we have that the sun may gracefully touch our shoulders is another day we ultimately have at life. And that's why I wanted to end the exploration here, because there's an aspect of true gratitude that's present here that is sorely missing these days from what I could see. Now, I know I may have my vision clouded a little bit because I work within mental health and I work as a psychotherapist, and a lot of what I see is more of the dark nature, maybe the shadow nature of the human psyche relating within that position. However, what I do notice a lot of times absent is the true feelings of gratitude that's present within the journey of life itself. When we could begin to shut out the noise, when we could begin to find gratitude in the small things, as Ralph Waldo Emerson would have said, to find to see the flowers in the meadow, if you would. Sorry, I forgot my quote there for a minute. Once you see the flowers in the meadow, once you're able to smell the flowers, or even like, I believe it was Mark Twain that once said that forgiveness was is what the violet does on the hill that steps on it. Or these are paraphrase quotes, by the way. When we begin to see gratitude within the perspective of just waking up, when we begin to feel that ideal that the sun's going to touch me today, it's a whole new day to strive to be a little better, maybe, to, even if there was a loss for the day before, to create some aspect that feels like there's one aspect that was accomplished for this day. That's the gratitude that's present here. That's a sacred offering that we could give, just in the idea of washing ourselves away from the defeats and allowing ourselves to see the miracle in each day of life. Now, for the non-paraphrased version, Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Many eyes go through the meadow, but few see the flowers in it." And Mark Twain noted that forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the hill that has crushed it. I love those two quotes, and I feel that we will end there for today, because I think there's an absolute journey that we could undertake to find our developmental well-being, especially as it relates to that person that we strive to become. Now, this is an ontological plight we all undertake, and this is a theme that's common in the story Siddhartha. And I want to end at a place where there's sacred offerings, there's ablutions that are present, there's an ask for forgiveness or been asked to wash things away, and there's an offering that's given in order to do that. Who could benefit from a simple thank you in your life today? Who could benefit from a simple expression of love? Maybe it's yourself. Maybe just waking up today and feeling the sun on your face, feeling the sun on your shoulders is something to be grateful for and to give thanks, to express love for it. Maybe it's a loved one that is going through some hardships that just needs to hear those 3 simple words that expresses your love to them in a way that's heartfelt and kind. I want to thank you for joining me here today. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed presenting it. As always, I hope that you find sacredness and blessings in your journey to advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. Goodbye for now.